All right, well, we're getting here into use a common denominator to write an equivalent fraction for each fraction. Use the least common denominator. This is kind of the first step into adding and subtracting fractions with different denominators, fifth grade, as we're looking here in 8.3. And I'm going to kind of push this a little further in the sense that on today's assignment, I am going to require you to use the least common denominator. Because as I've said with many other things, and fractions are very important as well, the smaller numbers you use, the easier it is. And it's not that I'm looking to make things easy and not a challenge, but I'm trying to minimize the probability or possibility that you could make an error somewhere. So I'm going to be asking for the least common denominator, and during this video I'll kind of show you what I feel is the most effective way to find the least common denominator. So when we have 1/4 and 1/2, now we want to remember the top number is the numerator, the bottom number is what we call the denominator. So when I have 1 over 4 and 1 over 2, I look for when I have these two problems, imagine that this was a subtraction problem or an addition problem involving these two numbers. I look for my larger denominator, which in this case is 4. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to think about what the multiples of 4 are. Now, when you do this, you're not necessarily going to have to list them out like I'm going to here in this video. But I at least want to show you the process that you should be going through in your brain. So I'm listing multiples of 4. I'm doing this with the bigger number of the two. I'm not going to do this with the 2. I'm just going to do it with the biggest number, the 4. And I'm going to think, well, 4 times 1 is 4. And then I'm going to ask myself, can 2 evenly go into 4? Well, yes, 2 can evenly go into 4 because I know that 2 times 2 is 4. So the smallest common denominator is going to be 4, which means that my 1 over 4 is going to stay the same. So I'm going to put 1 over 4 as one of them. That is not going to change because 4 is the least common denominator. My 2 has to become a 4, and I'm going to make an equivalent fraction. Well, how do I make an equivalent fraction? So I ask myself, well, what did I do to 2 to get 4? When it comes to equivalent fractions, it's all about multiplying or dividing. You'll remember in the first lesson in Chapter 8, we're doing some dividing to get fractions in simplest form. We would divide both numbers. Here in this part, for the most part, you're going to be multiplying. Well, 2 times 2 is what gave me 4, so I do 1 times 2, and that gives me 2. My two fractions are 1 over 4 and 2 over 4. Here I have 2/3 and 2/9. Well, the bigger number is 9. So I'm going to think about what the multiples of 9 are. Well, 9 times 1 is 9. Can 3 evenly go into 9? Well, yes, it can, because I know that 3 times 3 makes 9. So 2 over 9, I know that's going to stay the same because the least common denominator is 9. So I can write down 2 over 9 as one of them. And then my 2 over 3 is going to become something over 9. And once again, I ask myself, what did I do to 3 to get 9? Well, 3 times 3 is 9. What did I do? So since 3 times 3 is what gave me 9, I have to do 2 times 3. 2 times 3 gives me 6. My two fractions are going to be 2/9 and 6/9. And you're going to be expected to use the least common denominator. Okay? So, let's look at this one. Now, 2 over 3 and 5 over 6. Okay? So, I see that 6 is the bigger denominator between 6 and 3. So I'm going to think, well, 6. 6 times 1 is 6. 6 times 2 is 12. 6 times 3 is 18. Now this time I went a little further than I needed to because I want to show you something here. First of all, with 6, I know that 3 can evenly go into 6 because 3 times 2 is 6. However, 3 times 4 is 12. 3 times 6 is 18. 6, 12, 18. All of these could be common denominators with 6 and 3. But I'm requiring you to use the least common denominator, which means the first number that you come across when you're thinking about your multiples, that is going to be your least common denominator. So my 5 over 6 is going to stay the same because I've established that my least common denominator is 6. I'm thinking about 2/3 becoming something over 6. Well, 3 times 2 is 6, and I'm going to think 2 times 2 times 2 is 4. And so that is going to be my 2 common denominators there, 4 over 6 and 5 over 6. Now, when I go to my next one, 4/5 and 1 over 3. My denominators are 5 and 3. So I'm going to be thinking about 5 because that's the bigger of the 2 denominators. Well, 5 times 1 is 5, and I cannot take 3 times something and get 5, so I'm going to have to try something else. 5 times 2 is 10. I can't take 3 times something and get 10. You'll notice, 5th graders, that if you're really solid with your multiplication tables, that's really going to help you with fractions. All right? And so 10 is not going to work because 3 times something does not equal 10. So I think 5 times 3, well, 5 times 3 is 15. And sure enough, that will work because 3 times 5 is 15. So this one's a little bit different in the sense here now that I've got to change both of these. This 4 over 5 is becoming something over 15. This 1 over 3 is becoming something over 15. I'm thinking, well, 5 times 3 is what gave me 15. So I have to do 4 times 3, and that gives me 12. 3 times 5 gave me 15. 1 times 5 gives me 5. 12 over 15, 5 over 15. Those are my 2 correct fractions using the least common denominator. 5/6 and 8/9. 5/6 and 8/9. Well, 9 is the bigger of my 2 denominators, so I'm using 9. And I'm thinking, well, 9 times 1 is 9. I can't take 6 times something and get 9. So I've got to do 9 times 2. 9 times 2 is 18. And 18 will work because I know that 6 times 3 is 18. So 18 will work with both 6 and 9 as the least common denominator. So, well, what did I do to 6 to get 18? I did 6 times 3 to get 18. So I have to do 5 times 3, and that gives me 15. Well, what did I do to 9 to get 18? I did 9 times 2 to get 18. So I think 8 times 2, and that gives me 16. All right? Last one, 4/5 and 3/4. Well, the bigger of the 2 denominators is 5 because I've got 5 and 4. So I'm working with 5. Well, 5 times 1 is 5. I can't take 4 times something and end up with 5. So I think 5 times 2. Well, 5 times 2 is 10. I can't take 4 times something and get 10. So I have to go farther. 5 times 3 is 15. I can't take 4 times something and get 15. So I've got to go even farther. 5 times 4 is 20. And sure enough, I can take 4, multiply it by 5 to get 20. That means 20 is my least common denominator. So this is going to become something over 20. This is going to become something over 20. What did I do to 5 to get 20? Well, I did 5 times 4. Has nothing to do with this number here. Don't think that you're multiplying it by the numerator. That just happens to be 4. It's what did I do to 5 to get 20? It doesn't matter what this top number is, this numerator. It's 5 times 4 that gave me 20. So I do 4 times 4, and that gives me 16. Well, what did I do to 4 to get 20? I did 4 times 5 to get 20. So I have to do 3 times 5 to get 15. Those are my 2 equivalent fractions using least common denominators. All right, we'll talk to you later, 5th grade. This is making common denominators, making equivalent fractions using the least common denominator. Talk to you later. Bye.